My next guest is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Do you love the new branding? You must love I almost said Brandonomics. Bidenomics.
We'll do another segment on Brandonomics, and I'll tell you it'll be very, very different than Bidenomics. Because right now, the path that we're on, everybody knows that we're on a bad path. 75% of Americans say we're on the wrong track. This isn't just a partisan issue. Americans are really struggling. And you mentioned before, you look at the growth in wages, which has been modest, but completely outpaced by the growth of inflation. So even if people are making a little bit more, everything else is extraordinarily more expensive. That's Bidenomics. $1 trillion on our nation's credit card debt. I'm talking about consumer credit card debt, not the federal budget. We now have the highest credit card debt collectively in our nation's history. That is Bidenomics. This plan doesn't work. Please offer up something better. I don't know if it's Brandonomics, but there's got to be something better out here than Biden.
The Democrats think all federal spending is moral. Right? It doesn't matter if the debt is rising. It doesn't matter if the deficit is rising. It doesn't matter if inflation is going up. They believe that there's a moral core to central planning. So like this $42 billion they're going to spend on internet for everyone, they're basically saying to the states, we've taken your resources away, but now we're going to give them back to you so you can go out and make sure everybody has internet. I don't know where these people are where there's no internet, but if they want it so badly and the market wants to deliver it to them, they can. We don't need the federal government to do these things. It seems like everything that the Democrats want to do that they can't find the power to do in the Constitution, they say, well, this is what democracy looks like. It's about the middle class. It's about doing the right thing, the greater good. It's spend, spend, spend.
Right. It's investments, as they would say, as you noted. Investments in America, investments as determined by the federal government, by the Congress, by the president. And that's what's frustrating to hear the OMB director, Shalanda Young, say, this is not a top-down approach. That's exactly what it is. It's a top-down approach. It's the federal government saying we ought to invest in this type of broadband, for instance, as you noted. But we have literally dozens of broadband programs to deliver these services to the disadvantaged. They exist across at least a dozen agencies, federal agencies and departments. It's a fragmented mess, and all they do is they keep funneling more and more money into these programs that aren't really working effectively. But as you know, most people have broadband already, more than 90%. The way they manipulate these statistics is they redefine what broadband is. They actually want to shift the definition to 100 megs. Nobody needs broadband that much unless you're creating content in your YouTube studio or something like that. The average American doesn't need broadband that fast. So let's focus on actually fixing those people that don't have broadband. It's a very, very small number, instead of just these PR ribbon cutting efforts that are the federal government saying we ought to spend all this money investing in America, when in reality they're wasting it. They're handing it to favored corporations. They're flushing the money down the toilet. That's what's really frustrating.
Well, I saw this coming 2 years ago when they started to say that internet is now infrastructure, right? So once they declared internet was infrastructure, you had to know that they were going to pretend like it was roads or whatever. But even still, this is not a federal responsibility. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the government is to deliver to all citizens of this republic high-speed broadband internet. But again, that's how they break the wall. It's infrastructure, and everybody has to have infrastructure. I don't understand this. We have 50 different states. There's a thing called the free market in the private sector. If people want internet, there's a way for them to get it. Long before, every home had cable, people out in the rural areas went out and got satellite dishes. I mean, we don't need the federal government doing all of these things. What they're trying to do is expand the size and scope of government. This is why they want to own the charging stations. They want to control internet access. They want to control internet content. And they want to, air fingers, quote, create jobs instead of saying maybe there's a less expensive satellite option. They're like, oh, no, we're going to start, laying fiber optic cables. That means, government workers building towers all across the country. It's the same thing with the wind farms and the solar farms. This gives the government control of these things in our lives.
No, that's right. And like you said, they described it as infrastructure. So the massive infrastructure bill, they included tons of broadband funding. And then they said, well, when coronavirus came, everybody's working from home, so they need faster internet. So all of these enormous COVID bills that were passed, they included billions of dollars more for broadband funding. So they just keep layering program and dollar on top of one another. Meanwhile, the private sector is actually functioning. You talk about satellite services. Elon Musk has launched one that's helping get broadband services to fighters in Ukraine. It's going to be deployed across this country, across the globe, really. Other companies like Amazon and plenty of other companies are doing the same. So they're saying, forget the federal government. We don't need these dollars. All we need for them to do is get out of the way, and the private sector is going to innovate and deliver these services to people that are in remote areas where it might be difficult to lay fiber or other types of infrastructure in a physical fashion.
Yeah, they'll say, well, we don't want to give away this to big corporations like Amazon or SpaceX. Oh, what small businesses, mom and pop businesses are going to handle this? You're going to pick a winner and a loser here at some point, right? You're going to choose a corporation. It's just how close are they to the Democrats, right? And what's their ESG and DEI score? I got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.